Welcome back. John McClain, Hall of Fame NFL columnist, with us here on 365 Sports. John, it's been kind of an eventful day even for a Tuesday during the season with Amari Cooper, Devontae Adams getting traded, Jerry Jones going off on a tirade. We'll start because I'll wait for Smokey to get out of the bathroom to talk about Jerry Jones. But your thoughts on which trade do you think will work out better, Amari Cooper to the Bills or Devontae Adams to the Jets?
I believe Amari Cooper, he had been playing really bad in Cleveland, dropping touchdown passes. It was obvious his heart wasn't in it. Deshaun Watson's the worst now, Will Levis is the worst quarterback in the NFL. Watson's number 2. And they took away his best receiver. I believe that they're going to keep playing him because they want to keep losing so they get a high draft choice to draft his replacement in April. And as far as Devontae Adams, most of these wide receiver trades in which they go and get big new contracts, they don't work out. Kansas City won a Super Bowl without Tyreek Hill. And what did the Raiders do after giving up first and second round picks for Adams? They get rid of his quarterback that he came there to play with. I don't see them. I know Aaron Rodgers, if people don't believe he had something to do with Saleh being fired, they're nuts. As soon as Saleh wanted to demote his best buddy, offensive coordinator Nathaniel Hackett from play caller, then he gets fired the next day. And then they acquired Devontae Adams, the receiver he wanted. If Hassan Reddick, who's been holding out all this time, if he was buddies with Rodgers, they would have made that deal work. I have never seen, Paul, in my 48 years covering the NFL, I have never seen a player have as much control over a roster as Rodgers does. That's why they are a dumpster fire bound to fail, and I love it. As far as the Bills, I'm guessing they probably figure, we probably should have kept Stephon Diggs. We had him under contract for another 3 years because he's been playing really well for the Texans.
John, the Texans 41, Patriots 21 out in Foxborough. C.J. Stroud with a trio of touchdown passes. We also got to see Drake May make his first start. What were your impressions on another win for Houston, now 5-1, and also I guess what you saw from Drake May and the Patriots?
Well, the Texans' first 4 victories, Craig, had been by 2, 6, 4, and 3 points. Last year they won 7 of their 10 games by 7 or fewer points. So it was nice to see them have one that we thought, even though it was 14-7 at the halftime, I never thought they were going to lose that game. The Patriots are just terrible. I was so impressed with Drake May. They beat him up early. He was 3 and out. They were turning it over, forced 4 turnovers. He was sacked 4 times, 3 by Will Anderson Jr. They knocked him down another 8 times, pressured him constantly, and he still threw 3 touchdown passes, I believe, for 46, 38, and 30 yards. And he was that old taking a licking, keep on ticking. I was so impressed, and so were the Texans. Now the Texans go to Green Bay. Jordan Love has thrown 4 touchdown passes in back-to-back games. He has totally recovered from that early season injury. And the Texans, even though it was the first time they scored 40 in regular season since 2021, they still have not played offensively the kind of game they're capable of. But the good thing is they ran the ball 192 yards. Joe Mixon has played 2 full games. He's got 159 and 102 yards rushing, and he's a good receiver too. So having him back, Dameon Pierce had a 54-yard run, Mixon a 59-yard run, should make a world of difference because they're going to the Packers, who are second in the league in rushing. And I'm writing a column for HoustonTexans.com about 2 teams that didn't want their back, Cincinnati with Joe Mixon and the Raiders with Josh Jacobs. Both of those guys are doing great for their new teams, the Packers and the Texans.
John, as you know, Jerry Jones today was on the flagship in Dallas and got a little frustrated, got a little angry, got a little upset because they were asking him tough questions, legitimate questions, and in a way almost tried to bully them about being able to ask somebody else to ask the questions in the future. It's not a good look, in my opinion. He's at the NFL owners' meetings. He brought that up again. Your thoughts about, is he on a breaking point right now?
Sure sounds like it. He definitely bullied him, and he threatened him, basically threatened to get him fired. The GM up there, Gavin Spittle, was my GM here in Houston, and Gavin was really good. What Jerry Jones did for them this morning, you couldn't pay for. They're getting publicity on every talk show, nationally, locally, all over the country. You can't buy that kind of pub. And the one that's unhappy about it is the ticket, because the ticket is the perennial ratings leader up there. I thought it was a bad look by Jerry. Turned 82 Sunday. His team's terrible. Everybody told him throughout the offseason, you need a running back. Derrick Henry, living in Dallas, wanted to play for the Cowboys. They never gave his agent the courtesy of a call. Now he's on a pace for almost 2,000 yards. All these things are being thrown up in Jerry's face, and they're legitimate. Dak is not Dak. So far, you got Dak, playoff Dak, not regular season Dak. But be that as it may, the division's not great, and they could still get their defensive players back. And if you got regular season Dak, even though there's no running game, they still can compete for a wild card. But I'll tell you what, there's a lot of people in Houston eating it up, and they play at AT&T Stadium against the Cowboys this year, and that's going to be fun. But I'll tell you something Randy Galloway told me one time, and he's talking about as a writer, a columnist, and as a talk show host. He said, I have ripped that man every way I can possibly think to rip him, and every time I see him, he acts like I'm his long-lost brother. How can you not like somebody like that? Jerry has never, ever acted the way he acted this morning since he bought that team in 1989. I don't know what it's a sign of, but 82 years old, I've always thought he should be not putting himself out there as much. I'll bet you he comes back and apologizes.
John, the interesting thing is fans, want Jerry to change. The problem is I don't know too many 82-year-old men who all of a sudden have life-affirming changes in the way that they do their business. So that's not going to happen. I mean, there are a lot of antiquated things that he does. I think they're terrified of the salary cap in a way that no other team has. And I think what fans want to see, like when he said he was all in, is, look, they're building for this future in this terrified, like, we're going to be in salary cap jail. Okay, that's fine. Everybody be fine if they were in salary cap jail every few years, if they won a Super Bowl like, say, the Rams did. But he's trying to build another dynasty, and without a Tom Brady or a Patrick Mahomes, that just doesn't happen, right?
Well, also, you can redo contracts. How's Baltimore a Super Bowl contender every year when they're paying Lamar Jackson that kind of money? Because they got a really good personnel department and a great coaching staff. It can be done. The only time Jerry's going to change is when he has to, because mentally or physically. But then Steven's going to run it exactly like Jerry did, unless Steven has a change of heart and said, okay, I'm going to pull back and we're going to go hire legitimate GM. Whether that's Will McClain, who's looked at as a great personnel man, or they bring somebody in, because if Steven says, I'm going to run it like Daddy, then that's going to be depressing for Cowboy fans a long time, and that 30-year streak might stretch to 60.
John, where does Atlanta rank amongst your favorite Super Bowl cities? They got awarded another one today for 2028. I know that's not the biggest story in the world, but you've been all around various sites. Where does ATL stack up?
They've got a great stadium. When they had their first two, the weather was horrible. And the only reason they got another one is because they built a new stadium. But then they put on such a good show with that new stadium, they got another one. But as far as they do, every city does everything they can. And a lot of people like to go to New Orleans so they can stay drunk all week, not have to drive and worry about getting DWI'd. But I always liked it when it was on the West Coast, San Diego one year, especially Palo Alto one year. That was an incredible experience. I loved it in L.A. as well, Miami, Tampa. But Atlanta, they do a great job of hosting the Super Bowl, but to me it's nothing special like the ones I just mentioned.
The only thing I felt about Miami when they were there, John, and this is just from our perspective of being, kind of locked in Radio Row for a week, was the staff there didn't seem to care that we were there. Like, everything else was fine, but as far as, like, us, it was like, hey, you're out of bottled water. And they're like, oh, are we? Like, okay.
Well, that's because they were warned ahead of time that Paul Catalina was coming.
Yeah, probably. I'm a diva, John.
Well, another Super Bowl for
Beware.
Atlanta and not one for Arlington.
That is amazing, considering Jerry's influence and the fact they got the biggest stadium. And, yes, they had an ice storm. I think that the scandal they had afterward played a big part of that. All the problems they had in-game would played a big part of that, too. I am stunned that Jerry Jones, with all his power, has not been able to get one back there. Just shocked.
John, that was something that they were, as they love to do, break a record. And I remember that. They had the scaffolding problem, whatever it was. The weather, Mother Nature, that's going to happen. Atlanta, Paul, weren't you guys in the so-called the hood?
We definitely were. We definitely were. And that was but next time I know not to make that mistake. It wasn't a mistake. It was a dire situation. We had a place in Bankhead that was going to be nice, and then
Buckhead.
No, Buckhead. No, we had Bankhead. We had Bankhead. That's where we wanted.
Yeah, we had the wrong one.
Yeah,
that's what.
No, we had a place in
rob a Bankhead.
We had a place in Buckhead that was really nice, and then the week, like 3 days before we were about to leave, the lady said there's a gas leak. I have to cancel, and I'm like, okay. In this whole building, what I think happened was she read on the internet that the Super Bowl was here and didn't know it, and said, "Oh, I'm giving this place away too cheap."
Yep.
So we had to book a place at the last minute, and our owner was like, well, it has to be the same budget. So I found a place. The house looked nice, and the house was incredibly nice. The surrounding area was not.
It was a renovation. It was one of those.
The first one in that neighborhood, that's for damn sure. Yeah.
And maybe even bullet holes in the screens or whatever. And then I stayed because of my great friend Eric. He had rooms in the Omni in downtown Atlanta, and Craig and Q and Paul and others were in the hood. They thank God you guys survived, right?
Well, that's because you're the boss.
It's because that guy was my
Should be staying. You should be staying in the top 5.
Jamal Lewis came on the show with Craig and Q, and they told him where they were staying. He's like, I don't even stay there. Like, that's where I'm from.
Oh my gosh,
that's great.
John, anything outside of what we've discussed NFL-wise that we've missed that may be top of mind around the league?
I can't wait for Baylor basketball season. I was with a bunch of Baylor alums last night for the DePelchins Children's Center, and James Francis was inducted into the Gridiron Legends of Texas, along with Eric Dickerson and John Randall and Tony Franklin and 2 other high school people, and we were all fired up about basketball and seeing Edgecombe and the Duke point guard. We can't wait.
Yeah, I agree. I think a lot of people, Baylor fans and alums, agree with you 100%. Thank you, sir. Appreciate your time.
So tough. In the Big 12. Guys, thank you very much. Sick 'em Bears. Good luck against the Red Raiders.
Every Tuesday around 5:30, most every Tuesday, unless there's NFL meetings or business that he has to take care of. John McClain, Hall of Fame columnist,